If you've been scrolling through endless lists of binoculars, toggling between compact and high power and still feel like you're chasing a phantom that's never going to land, you're not alone. The market is saturated with numbers that sound impressive until you try to put them to work on a trail or at a stadium, and that's why today's deep dive is all about cutting through the hype and seeing if the ZEISS 8x32 Victory SF actually earns a spot in your kit. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why the 832 label matters in everyday use. An 8 magnification means the image appears 8 times closer than the naked eye, which is a sweet spot for most handheld situations. It gives you enough reach to see details on a bird's plumage or the spin of a baseball without demanding a rock-steady tripod. The 32mm objective lens keeps the overall package light enough to slip into a jacket pocket, yet still gathers enough light to keep the picture bright in the early morning or late afternoon. That combination is why the Victory SF lands in the portable yet capable niche, a place many hikers and casual birders occupy daily. What really sets the ZEISS version apart is the 90% light transmission claim, backed by their proprietary T* coating. In plain language, more of the light that hits the front lens makes it through to your eye, which translates to a livelier, more saturated view even when the sun is low. I've taken these binoculars on a misty morning hike in the Appalachians, and the colors didn't look washed out the way they do on cheaper optics. The green stayed green, the red stayed red, and the shadows retained depth. That kind of true-to-life image quality is especially noticeable when you're trying to identify a bird species by the subtle hue of its wing patch or when you're scanning a distant ridge for a landmark. The SmartFocus concept is another piece of the puzzle. ZEISS designed the focus knob to lock in a specific distance, so you can set it once for, say, a field of birds that are roughly 200 meters away and then just swing the binoculars without readjusting. In my experience, this works well for static subjects like wildlife in a meadow or a marching band on a football field. You get a quick, repeatable focus that feels almost like a preset. It's not a full-range autofocus system, but the simplicity of a single focus dial that stays stable as you move can save a few seconds when you're trying to capture that split-second moment. Now, who should actually consider buying these? If you're a weekend hiker who likes to keep a pair of optics on hand for unexpected wildlife, a casual birdwatcher who wants a bright image without lugging around a heavy 1050, or a sports fan who enjoys a clear view of the action from the stands, the Victory SF hits the right notes. The compact size means they won't feel like a burden on long treks, and the high transmission ensures you won't be disappointed by a dim picture in the golden hour. For anyone who values a wide field of view, the binoculars promise an extremely wide angle. You'll find it easier to track moving subjects without constantly reaming. On the flip side, there are a few scenarios where you might want to look elsewhere. If you're a serious astronomer hoping to use binoculars for deep sky objects, the 8 magnification and 32mm aperture will limit the amount of detail you can pull from faint stars and nebulae. Likewise, if you're hunting in dense brush where you need a longer reach and tighter eye relief, you might prefer a higher power model, even if it means sacrificing some field width. The Victory SF also sits at a premium price point typical of ZEISS optics. If your budget is tighter and you're willing to accept a slightly dimmer image, there are decent alternatives that still deliver respectable performance. Talking about practical strengths, the combination of the T* coating and the wide field of view creates a seamless viewing experience when you're scanning a panorama. I tested them at a coastal birding site where flocks of sandpipers would dart across the horizon. The binoculars let me follow the entire flock without the image slipping out of view, and the color fidelity helped me differentiate the subtle variations between species. Because the focus stays locked once set, I could swing from one bird to the next without fiddling with the knob, which feels surprisingly efficient when you're trying to keep up with fast-moving subjects. One limitation I noticed, not because of a defect but by virtue of design, is the eye relief distance. At around 15mm, it works fine for most people, but if you wear glasses you'll need to press the binoculars a bit closer to your face to see the full field. That's a trade-off you see often with compact models. You get a lighter package, but the eye relief can be a little tighter. It's not a deal-breaker for most, but worth noting if you rely on glasses for clear vision. Another